Ahoy, hoy, everyone. It's Craig, and I'm here today to talk about why I didn't hate Disney Enchantment, the brand new nighttime spectacular happening at Magic Kingdom as part of Walt Disney World's 50th anniversary celebration. Now, this show has been very polarizing, with most people not liking it versus people enjoying it. And I do happen to be in the category of those who enjoy the show, but I also understand why people aren't taking on to this show. And hopefully I'll cover a little bit of it all. But I know I'm probably going to miss out on a lot with this show, but I really enjoy it. So I'm going to at least make a small pitch out here for why you should enjoy it too. But, this show is following in the footsteps of Happily Ever After, which was a great show. It's a very good show, and Happily Ever After had to follow in the footsteps of Wishes, and no one thought Happily Ever After would be able to overcome Wishes. And you know what? It did. And now we have this new show, and does it over exceed what Happily Ever After is? Not at all. Did it need to? I mean, you could argue, yes, this is Walt Disney World's 50th anniversary celebration. There's a chance this show could run far beyond the celebration, and it could replace Happily Ever After even after the end of the 18-month celebration. And it seems like that's going to be the case. So yeah, it's a little hard to take a step down from what was a truly incredible, amazing show and move to something that's a very good show, but not better than its predecessor. But you know what? At sometimes too, it's hard to always beat the predecessor. It is a game where you always want to try to one up yourself and move on to the next great thing. And while I will sit here and admit this show is not better than Happily Ever After, I think it's still a really solid show. And I'm going to bring up a lot of the reasons why I do believe it. Now, with my Harmonious and Kite Tales video, I went through every step-by-step part of the process of these shows, talking about the different sections. And I'm not going to do that in this one. There's a lot. I have notes on it that I absolutely could do. So I'm going to try to decipher what I wrote down as the step-by-step moment with my individual thoughts and feelings on it. And hopefully most of this will make sense. But reason one why I love this show is that just any fireworks show in Magic Kingdom is pretty much going to do it for me immediately. Even the not so good ones, which it rarely happens, like the mini fireworks that they showed during Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party in 2019, and will probably return this holiday season. I didn't like them. I didn't like them after Holiday Wishes, which was a phenomenal show. But beyond that, I don't think there's a fireworks show at Magic Kingdom that I haven't seen or that I have seen and haven't enjoyed, because you know what? There's just something special about watching fireworks in the Magic Kingdom. And with this show in particular, again, the 50th anniversary show, the first thing that we are all thinking for and hoping for is maybe we'll see see a version of Remember Dreams Come True that Disneyland had for their 50th anniversary celebration. Maybe we'll have our own version of that for Walt Disney World. And it was obvious that it wasn't happening as they started to release more details on Enchantment and said they were really leaning hard into the characters that inspired the Disney parks. At that point, we knew it wasn't happening, and I really wish it would have. That's a no-brainer. I mean, this is with that show in particular, it celebrated Disneyland so perfectly. If you've never even listened to the soundtrack, it's basically a blend of Wishes mixed in then with Julie Andrews' narration. Of course, Julie Andrews, Mary Poppins, and then also just went through all of the park music that you know and love through Disneyland's history, including Walt Disney's opening day dedication. It was a great show. And something could have been done very similar in this show. Now, I also see a certain aspect of it is that Walt never ended up stepping foot in Magic Kingdom. So that's a big part of the story as well, too. But of course, his brother Roy was here to dedicate it. So maybe they didn't need to lean into the whole dedication side and through that, but they easily could have made this about the parks and the music that you hear in the parks and the characters that you see in the parks in a bigger general sense than what they did with this show. I think it still could have been accomplished, but that's not the route that they went down. So I don't know if there's enough of a point of really like just sitting and thinking about that over and over again. It is what it is, and it's not going to change at this point. So we just have to take it for what it is in this situation. And yeah, there are parts of this show that I don't enjoy. I think Angela Bassett is amazing. However, I don't know if her narration fits in with this show. She has a very demanding voice, and you sit up and you listen to it. But would I prefer the delightful narration of Jiminy Cricket from Wishes, as well as some of the other little narration from Disney characters? Yeah, probably. Happily Ever After kind of just threw that out the window for the most part with how the structure of that show happens. So that's a little bit different, but yeah, that's one part that didn't really connect with me. However, the original song that they use in the beginning and end of the show, the new anthem, I do like that. The You Are the Magic song that is done by a former Disney cast member, Philip Lawrence, and I think this song will catch on. Happily Ever After, I know a lot of people were a huge fan of that song and did love singing it, but at the same time too, I don't know if people caught on to the anthem of Happily Ever After the same way they did with Wishes. Wishes also ran a long time and had the CD put out with the song, so people had a lot more time to actually learn that song. And then also having like Starlight, Starbright in it, it was a lot easier to learn for Disney fans. Even at the point of when Happily Ever After returned for the cast member preview, I was like, this is going to be an amazing night. Fireworks haven't been shown in a year. Cast members are going to be singing every little bit of the song. And I'm standing around and listening to cast members singing like the first two lines and then just kind of trailing off because they still didn't know the words. And, could hear a similar thing on the reopening night of the show for the public. I think while we loved that music, a lot of people didn't ever really grasp on and learn it quite as well. And I know there are some that are out there. I heard that walking down Main Street for the last time that I saw Happily Ever After, heard a whole group of adults singing it at the top of their lungs, and like, okay, you're the ones who did take the time to learn it and appreciate it. So there are some, but I don't think to the same amount that happened with Wishes. And I think this is going to be a similar situation. There are some people who are going to just launch into this song and others just aren't going to quite get there. But I like it. And I like that it bookends the show. And speaking of the show and music, the show is kind of like a hybrid love child between Happily Ever After and Wishes. I don't know if a lot of people remember back to Wishes at this point too, but that show was heavily instrumental. And I've been seeing a lot of complaints about Disney Enchantment that, it's you can't, it's too heavy on the instrumental sections. That literally was Wishes. There was the narration that popped in from time to time with the characters, but it was all about the score. And then Happily Ever After was more of a blend between the songs and then the score, and maybe leaning a little bit heavier on the songs than the score portion. But specifically with Disney Enchantment, yeah, it is very instrumental heavy. And then they made the choice to do original versions of the song for the show and have new singers do it rather than pull directly from the movies. And yeah, that makes it harder to sing along with those portions, because then at that point, you have to learn those new versions because they're just a little bit off, different key. It's not the ones you hear from the soundtrack over and over and over again. So that does make it a little bit more difficult. But that being said, I thought it fit beautifully into the show. It allows, when they do original takes on the songs, it allows them to mold it to what they want to do for the show. So I'm okay with that too. To an extent, yeah, I like when it's the original versions right directly in the show, and it's more familiar. But I also am okay with this take on it, only because I think I loved a lot of the music in this, and I'll just put that out now. I love that it started right away in the show with featuring "Almost There" from Princess and the Frog. I mentioned during the Harmonious video that I my favorite song from Princess and the Frog was either Dig a Little Deeper or Almost There, and they went with Almost There for this show. So huge fan, absolutely. Oh, I also when I was talking about the hybrid love child of Wishes and Happily Ever After, they literally do this nice little Wishes wink right at the beginning of the show. So truly appreciated that. But back to the music, even with some of the song choices, even the instrumentals, I'm going to kind of blend the two together, instrumentals and original. They had Just Around the River Bend from Pocahontas being featured, which is actually my favorite song from that movie. It just, as soon as I heard that, I'm like, okay, two things at this point. It's clear that the visuals aren't going to match necessarily what's happening in the show, and they're going to pull some random songs that you don't really expect. And I guess the visuals not really matching could also be a part why it's definitely less. It's definitely the inferior version of Happily Ever After in that way. Happily Ever After did the medleys where, it was a Disney song, but you were seeing montages of different characters. And I think there is a place for that, obviously, too. But you also want sections where the visuals are matching directly what the song that is playing. So I think they might have leaned a little too heavy on that. But when you want to feature so many characters, you have to lean into that montage format. Was it a good choice? They could have done it a little less, but for the most part, it still worked with me. They have to bring in Moana, obviously their favorite, and over in over in Harmonious, they went with. Why is the song slipping my mind now? I can't even think about it at all. Like, where's my notes from that show? Blah 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 blah. See the light? How Far I'll Go. Jeez Louise, my mind is melting over the days. They went with How Far I'll Go over for Harmonious, but here, no, we need to feature Moana. They chose to use We Know the Way, which is one of my favorite songs on the soundtrack. At the end of the show, they have a section that instead of going with We Know the Way, they went with I Am Moana. Or, sorry, instead of How Far I'll Go, they used I Am Moana, which is a beautiful song too. And they use that as part of the kind of the sentimental version, the sentimental section of the show, because the show is structured a lot like Wishes and Happily Ever After, where you have the anthems at the beginning and the end. You have a nice blend of different hopeful moments, moments that are fun and happy and positive, that stressful villainy moment. And here, calling back again to Wishes, they use Night on Bald Mountain as the song during that scary section. Pirates of the Caribbean is left out of here completely. So finally someone got the word to stop putting Pirates of the Caribbean in the show, the score from Pirates of the Caribbean, that is. And and then also that sentimental sweet section building back in like I love that they use that structure. That's what I wish they would have had for Harmonious too. It's a great structure. It is storytelling through themes, not necessarily plots. And I think that it's very easy to understand that. And I guess understand's not even the word I'm looking for. It's just you're able to process that distinct thematic change in the story as it's going through. It actually makes sense. Some awkward transitions in this show too, just like Harmonious, but you also need those moments of refresh and pause and wait for the next moment to move on. But yeah, a little bit awkward at points throughout this show as well too. So let me look at what else I have in terms of notes with it. I liked a lot of the lighting effects in this show, as well as the projections. I only saw what was on the castle. I did turn around at times and look down Main Street, and I wasn't impressed with those. I've watched videos of what it looked like on Main Street. I was not impressed with those. I think you want to still get preferably anywhere between Casey's corner as well as the hub, and that's going to be your best spots to watch the actual show. Look at the castle projection, see the lasers up close as possible, be able to have that great view of Tinkerbell when she flies. Make those choices, not necessarily Main Street just because of those extra projections. I think it's cute after you've seen the show a couple times, but see the show in the right place for the very first time when you are actually going to be able to see it. And one of the random things I just thought of with this show now too is with Frozen. Of course, they have to throw Frozen in at some point too. They went with the choice of Into the Unknown, which I appreciate. It's a big anthem from Frozen 2. And yeah, it's a little over the top in this section, but thank goodness they just didn't use Let It Go again. Recycled Do You Want to Build a Snowman, which wouldn't really flow into the show. Musically, it did fit into this, but it did go a little bit over the top for sure. And I already mentioned Tinkerbell flying. Of course, she was going to fly for Disney Enchantment. I don't know why anyone thought she wouldn't. You know, over at Disneyland, they've used other characters flying in such before in their shows. But for this show, Tinkerbell has to fly. And the choice that they made for it is a little bit bizarre. It's right at the start of getting back into the anthem ending version of the show. So it took that from Happily Ever After, having a big moment at the end to send Tinkerbell down on rather than the beginning of the show. And it's probably not the best choice, but I still get what they did. They do have a line where the song is starting to get sung, and they specifically say, let it fly. And at that point, you see this trail lead up to the top spire where Tinkerbell is, and she starts to come down. And it seems anticlimactic, but the let it fly moment, like that is signaling that it is time for Tinkerbell to start going down. And then the big song starts to build up. Unlike Happily Ever After, where you had that You Can Fly moment where they just kept repeating it, and then the music like hit that high point. This didn't do it. It's still very mellow as it's building back up to that big moment. And as she's sprinkling her pixie dust, the castle starts to transition into gold. And it is less effective for sure than Happily Ever After with that Tinkerbell reveal. And I was thinking to myself, is this timed wrong? Is something off with this? It's not. It's the way they wanted to go with it, but it did feel a little bit awkward in the moment. And, you know, looking back at it, I understand why they made the choices they did with it. But yeah, I will be the first to admit it didn't feel like the climax that it did in Happily Ever After. But I don't know. I connect with this show. I really like the heart of it. I found the emotion in it, which I didn't find in Harmonious. And I love the song choices. I love the score. I just thought while it had its moments that were underwhelming or felt a little off as a fireworks show, it's still a great fireworks show. No, it's not Happily Ever After. And, you know, people are making it very clear that it's not Happily Ever After and upset about it. So maybe we won't see this forever because of that. But I still think it's worth checking out at least once. And I hope everyone can enjoy it, have that shared experience. I wasn't there with the shared experience. I was just there, you know, with other friends in the media group that were all around us and the small amount of special guests that were there. So yeah, you didn't hear those big crowd reactions to it. But at the same time, too, I was able to then focus on the music, the visuals, and that's what connected with me in the show. But being around a group of people seeing it, you know, hearing the emotion coming from everywhere else around you, I also think there's a benefit of that too. So I'm very interested in hearing everyone's thoughts on on Disney Enchantment. I know I've seen a lot of it in the comments for the video directly if you watched the video, but if you were there, I absolutely want to see what you had to say about it as well too at the opening night debut for all guests, not the media event portion, obviously, but October 1st, the big night. If you were there for that, I really want to hear what you had to think about Disney Enchantment and what you had to say about it. So please leave those in the comment section. And of course, give me a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe to the channel. And I guess I'll throw in a dreams plug too. You know what? If you want to book a vacation during the 50th anniversary to come see Disney Enchantment or any of the other shows, please head over to dreamsunlimitedtravel.com for a free no obligation quote today. But that's it for me and my thoughts on Disney Enchantment. I hope you see it and enjoy it. And if not, you can always just go watch my video of Happily Ever After. Do that too. But that's it for me. I'll see you again real soon with more thoughts on the 50th anniversary of Walt Disney World and beyond. So take care. Bye-bye.